A Meditative Way of Life. By Ami Ra, Wise. Forward, by Ta Wa, See Wise. This is a Wise Values publication. Wise Values is a 501c3 nonprofit organization, focused on addressing health disparities, food insecurity, and environmental injustice. Learn more at wisenpo.org. Chapter 11. Meditative Consumption.
Meditative consumption is deeply considering the root cause of our consumption choices and their overall impact upon our health and wellness. We have developed consumption habits as a product of exposure and familiarity. We have become attached to familiar consumption patterns before learning that we are consuming poisons. We have become the victims of economic schemes that have inundated our lives with toxins that cause physical, mental, and emotional illnesses. To move beyond these destructive habits, we must use discernment in our consumption choices. What we consume cannot simply be based on what we were fed as children and what is socially popular. As we pursue health, we will discover the factors that promote health and wellness. To break away from poor health outcomes, we must reject the common habits and behaviors that cause disease. Changing our consumption choices comes with many emotional responses, withdrawals, urges, cravings, and other uncomfortable reactions. Also, we find that consuming wholesomely for mental, physical, and emotional wellness is especially challenging when toxic consumption is the norm. Through a meditative way of life, we sever our attachment to socially acceptable habits and traditions that continue to reap poor health. Also, through meditation, we develop the capacity to process, mediate, and control the successful transition to a way of life that supports and sustains wholesome health and wellness. Many of our relationships are based upon collective endeavors to engage in toxic consumption. Most social interactions are based upon mutual toxic consumption. Just as most social venues mainly serve products that are known to cause disease. We are within a society that prioritizes profits over health. Therefore, we have limited support to make whole life changes to prevent being a victim of preventative disease. In fact, we instead encounter resistance and temptations. We also experience the longing desire for acceptance and approval. Making life-changing consumption choices is like an uphill battle. We are attacked on all sides due to the slow implementation of collective change that supports and sustains a healthy society. There is a strong pull that attempts to drag us back down into a toxic cesspool of destructive behaviors. Through meditation, we develop the strength to resist temptation. We also develop the courage to walk alone as we walk away from trends that cause mass suffering. Through meditation, we focus on our health, growth, and development. We discover the environmental factors, relationships, and needs that wholesomely support our lives. It is interesting facing our social conditioning that prepares us to accept abuse and neglect to the degree that we habitually self-inflict harm. This conditioning is the core reason for our toxic consumption. Only through an inward focus are we able to deactivate and dismantle it. The degree we love, value, and respect ourselves defines how much we care for our wellness. Certain disadvantaged and marginalized populations have the added burden of dismantling the impact of strategically applied and enforced abuse and violence to undermine our health and esteem. We face the wreckage of being intentionally broken and impoverished. We wade through the poisons flooding our devastated communities. We are pushed products that promise relief from the pain and turmoil of being bullied and degraded. The outcome of our consumption choices are then recorded as a statistical reality that narrates our health disparities and poor health outcomes. These statistics inform the tragic results, yet do not cause a halt in policy and industry practices that continue to prey on the ignorance and illness of vulnerable populations. From constant exploitation, we continue to stumble in our attempts to stand up and gain strength. As a victim of systemic abuse that has inbred self-inflicted abuse, we have a greater responsibility to consume wisely. We cannot continue to fall for the strategies that undermine our health, disrupt our community development, and stifle our progress. Through conscious consumption, we start the journey that strengthens our capacity to feed our community life-affirming and health-supporting foods. We develop the knowledge that allows us to educate and inform our community members to foster healthier collective choices. We can transform our communities by simply choosing to say no to the destructive products scientifically proven to cause poor nutrition, heart disease, cancers, obesity, diabetes, and mental illness. Our conscious consumption will give us the capacity to take control over our destiny from those who profit from our demise. As a global society, the collective transition to plant-based consumption will address major environmental and health challenges plaguing humanity. We must decide whether the economic advantages gained by the industries maintaining the consumption of animal meats and byproducts is worth the collective decline in health that contributes to a large proportion of deaths worldwide. Is it worth deforestation, environmental pollution, and extreme water usage to produce products that destroy human health? Reassessing our industry practices, our economic models, and major investments will require soul-searching through meditation. We must face the concept of economic loss and how it has become deemed as more detrimental than the loss of life through destructive consumption practices and marketing trends controlling product availability and food access. What are we attached to that causes us to hold on so tightly to habits and behaviors that has us on a fast track towards destruction? What values are we protecting that keeps us from letting go of traditions and legacies that cause harm? Why are we defensive toward the need for immediate change by weeding out consumption choices that reap disease and environmental destruction? Industry leaders and profiteers who gain the greatest economic advantage and power from human exploitation and negative influence are charged with the responsibility to reevaluate our life's purpose and contribution to humanity. Oftentimes, our attachment to material gain is a reaction to our fear of failure and loss. However, within our meditative journey, we discover the spiritual poverty that results from pursuing personal gain at the expense of life and at the cost of mass destruction. We inherited destructive legacies. Our choice to lay them to rest will benefit all of humanity and allow us to develop a sustainable and healthy society. The ability to develop a conscience is key to our salvation. Through a meditative way of life, we cultivate positive gifts, skills, and talents that allow us to contribute to the positive evolution of humanity. We have a responsibility to dismantle and deactivate the destructive systems and structures that perpetuate abuse, violence, disease, and destruction. The process of global change is more of a private meditative practice than a social agenda. Before social structures and systems can change, we must first uproot the inner ills that permit us to function against our nature and practice harmful behavior. We must become honest with ourselves and each other about our need for spiritual growth and development. As we pursue personal and collective maturity through meditative and health-affirming practices, we will gain the leadership capacities and strength to correct our collective wrongs and develop a holistically sustainable social model. Embark upon the journey of global change by going within.